Now let's go ahead and deep dive into the DBMS languages. So one of the most famous and predominantly used database management language is SQL. Okay, SQL is a structured query language. As you know, right, we have seen in two-tier and three-tier architecture, we have seen that there is a client side and there is a server side. And whenever the database management system application is trying to interact with the actual DB system, which is database system or database engine, then there need to be a connection between them, which is a network. And also there need to be a language that need to communicate in order to query certain things, access the tables, because if it is a relational database, then it can be achieved only using structured query language. So this structured query language is a way that the application can interact with the database. All right. So like two humans can communicate over a language, right? Like English is a common language, we both understand, we communicate through that. In the same way, when there is a client and server, there is a there is a way that they communicate is through structured query language. Okay, structured query language, which is a computer language for storing, manipulating, which is changing, modifying, and then retrieving the data stored in the relational database. Always understand that we are now concentrating only on relational databases, relational database management system, where we will try to use SQL as a query language, structured query language. Now, what is a SQL? SQL is a structured query language, which obviously we saw that it will help you to store, manipulate, and retrieve data, but mostly it will operate on relational database management system. Now, what are some of the examples of these relational database management system where we can utilize the SQL? There are like MySQL, Postgres, Oracle, Sybase, etc. are good examples of your relational database management system where SQL is used as a standard database language. Again, Microsoft SQL Server is there, and all that utilize the SQL as their database language. Now, understand what is the purpose of SQL. Why we need SQL? Why SQL now? Because already there are so many languages. Why another language that need to be come up with? So we have already seen why we need the structured query language is it is used to access, modify, manipulate, or retrieve the data from the database, which is obviously access data in a relational database. That will allow the users of to access the data. Second, it will describe the data, because what kind of a data is there, you need to describe that data, whether it is a number of tables are there, each table contains certain data, and what kind of a data type is stored into the data in the database. All that description of the data can be done using this SQL. And the thirdly, it will define the data. What it means is, now because it is a relational database, as you know, relational database always puts the data into rows and columns, because that is a tabular representation. In relational database, it is always in a table format. Because it is in a table format, obviously there will be a table name, there will be a column names, okay, which are nothing but your attributes or that are part of that table. And then each table again contains the rows or tuples, what we saw. So those rows will contain the actual variable data. All right. Now understand that while SQL will help you to define that data and manipulate also. At the same time, it will help you to embed into another language. Like for example, one very interesting example is the use of PHP. Okay, PHP is again a very vastly used programming language. I think it is currently the uh, um, it is currently existing, like more than 90% of the websites currently use PHP as their programming language. Okay, that is how widespread usage of the PHP is over the internet. So now when you're using a PHP as your backend programming language, which operates on the servers, you can also embed SQL queries or the SQL language in within that PHP and use them. Okay, that is how SQL is so powerful that it can embed into another languages. All right, so even Python, it can embed into a Python programming language. So SQL is, again, we that is the reason SQL, the popularity of SQL is so tremendous. And SQL allows the user to create, drop, and databases, tables, and everything. That is obviously understood because that will help you to define and create the database. And also you can delete the databases and tables as well. And it will allow the users to create views. Again, we'll talk about what views are. Views are like a kind of an abstract that you're creating. There are certain number of tables that are existing in a database, but there is also a view that you can create combining multiple tables and generate a view. You can join couple of tables and create a view out of it. All right, it is not the table per se, but it is just a view. Okay, and then you can also stored procs are there, which is the timber stored procedures, functions can be created. That will all can be done using a standard or structured query language. And another usage is about the permissions. So now what is meant by the permissions? Permissions is like you are giving a authorization. Okay, it includes both your authentication and authorization also comes into picture. What it means is not everyone can be able to access the database. Only a certain users have the privilege or the permissions to access a database, and at the same time not only accessing it, which is not only just reading the tables, but also if you want to modify, edit, okay, read, write, and those kind of access or permissions can be set over the tables using this SQL. All right, not only on tables but procedures and views as well. So you can set a permission only, like for example it can say only Vittal can access this database using the login ID and password. Okay, these are the permissions given. Only he can access those tables and modify and delete the tables. Okay, so if someone tries to access it, then they are denied. Okay, the permission will be denied and they no longer be able to access the database. That is how SQL can be utilized in terms of permissions as well. Now, just a brief history. Now, Edgar Ted, or you can call as a Ted, and this was the person in 1970s who is known as the father of relational database. Okay, just brief history of what SQL is. It all begins with the Ted. We call it as Ted is a person from IBM. He was working at IBM in 1970s, and he is now known as the father of relational databases. And again, in 1974 is the year when structured query language appeared. And this structured query language has got its widespread adoption from there on. And in 1978, IBM again worked over it and created a product named System or R. In 1986, IBM again developed the very first prototype, okay, the first prototype of relational database and standardized by AN SI, which is American National Standards Association. So they are the one who standardizes the SQL as well. And that is where the very first prototype was created. But the first relational database was actually created by Oracle. Okay, Oracle is the first company that created the first relational database. Earlier, Oracle was known as Relational Software, the earlier name of Oracle. That was the name under which the first relational database was released, and later this company went on to become Oracle. All right. Now, with that being said, let's jump on to the database languages. Now, SQL is a more structured query language, and that is the language of the databases. But again, it has got certain sub languages associated with it. There are again subsections to that SQL, and we call them as DDL, DML, again DQL, DCL, TCL, and all that. We'll try to see what they are in brief, and then we'll take it from there. The very first is called as a data definition language. It is a part of the SQL, mind you. And this DDL, or the data definition language, consists of these SQL statements. What statements are they comprise of? One is create statement, and again there is a alter, drop, truncate, comment, and then rename. These forms the part of the DDL. And what are this DDL will do? It is used to define the data tables. Okay, it is basically for defining the data tables. That is the reason it is a data definition language. Like if you want to create a database, just say create database and the database name. It will create a database for you. Again, create table and the table name. That will create a table under the particular database. Okay, and alter the table. Alter is for modifying. All right. So you can also go ahead and alter the table using the alter statement or alter command, you call it as. Sometimes they call it as commands or statements. Both are almost same. So data definition language commands are also called as data definition commands, and they are used to define data tables. Okay, the very first is DDL, which is for defining the data tables. The next one is called the DML. DML stands for data manipulation. Okay, when you say manipulation, right, it consists of adding, changing, modifying. All that is uh, becomes part of manipulation. Okay, manipulation is nothing but you are modifying, and modifying can be anything. It can be adding it, deleting it, inserting it. Okay, all these forms part of the manipulation. So what are the commands or the statements, that SQL statement, that are part of the data manipulation language? Insert statement, update statement, delete, okay, merge, call, and an explain plan. Okay, all these are part of the DML, which are used to manipulate the data in the existing table by adding, changing, or removing data. All right. So the next one is data control language. Control language is what you are trying to grant and revoke user privileges. Okay, so what is the control that you're trying to enforce here? It is the about the privileges or the permissions. Okay, you are granting an access to a table, you are revoking that access. So all that becomes part of the DCL, which is nothing but data control language, and it has got two commands. One is grant command or the statement, and then there is a revoke command. Okay, used to grant or revoke user access privileges. All right. And the next in line is about the transaction control language, which is also called as a TCL commands. And what it does, it is used to change the state of some data. Okay, state of some data. And what is the state? Whether it is in a like commit the transaction that are changed, or you want to roll back the transactions. Okay, now what it means is you have modified certain database entries or the tables with certain a certain data in the table, and you want to commit that to the table, which means you are saying, okay, now you can modify that table with these changes. So when you say commit, and those are the transactions that will be committed. What you are trying to do here, you are changing the state of the data from in modified to commit. Okay, so you are committing the entries into the tables. And also if you want to undo that, you can go ahead and make rollback as well. Those are part of the transaction control language, which is also known as TCL, which is still part of the SQL. So all these are part of the SQL. And the very final one, which is the fifth, is called DQL. It has just got only one command, which is select, because it is a data query language. And what is this query? Query contains only one command, which is select. Select is used to select specific data from the table, like select only one column from this table, or select star from table, which is select everything from the table. That is what it means. Or select only certain table which has got the data in a particular column greater than 1,000. Okay. So again, you can put a where clause there or a where command there, and again, you can go ahead and utilize inside the select command itself. So what you are seeing in this table right now is what makes SQL. Okay. which forms almost 90% of your SQL. Again, there are certain clauses are there, and again, in, as, like, percentage, ampersand. There are other expressions that you can add, predicate you can add. We'll talk about that very soon. But now understand these are the five database sub languages that are part of the SQL. That is DDL, DML, DCL, TCL, and DQL. So guys, there are many relational database that we can work on. All right. So now the very first that I can think of is the MySQL. Okay, MySQL is a very popular relational database. Again, it is a most popular open source database. So far, it was very much freely available. Now, currently, it is acquired by Oracle. Now, it is part of the Oracle stack, and Oracle is the owner of it. When Oracle acquired it, there was a birth of another database called MariaDB. Now, it has taken the position of MySQL in the open source world. This is an open source relational database as well. And now MariaDB can be readily used by a lot of developers when they are starting on to an open source stack. All right. So either you can go ahead and use MySQL or MariaDB. You can go ahead and install and try to use these two, either of these two relational database, or you can go ahead and use a SHAMP server. SHAMP is apachefriends.org. If you go there, there is something called as SHAMP server, and SHAMP is nothing but it is a free Apache distribution. What it contains, like if you see here, what is SHAMP? SHAMP is the most popular PHP development environment. It is completely free and easy to install Apache distribution. So what is this Apache distribution? It contains certain technologies, like it contains MariaDB, database will be installed, PHP language will be installed, and Perl scripting language will be installed for you automatically after you install Apache distribution, which is SHAMP. It is the same like if you have worked in Anaconda as well, right? Anaconda is also a Python distribution. So anything related to the Python, all the Jupyter notebooks and everything will be available in whenever you install whenever you install the Anaconda distribution. In the same way, when you go ahead and install the SHAMP distribution, which is a Apache distribution, you will be able to install MariaDB automatically, and from there you can go ahead and work on it. So what I need is, if you want to take up, this is the one route, and another route is go ahead and work on the Microsoft SQL Server. Either of them is fine for me. So for now, I'll just give you one walkthrough of how you can install this. So what you need to do is go to this apachefriends.org. Okay, on this website, go to the SHAMP server, and inside the SHAMP server, pick up whatever your database, whatever your operating system is, whether it is Windows, Linux, or Apple OS. All right. Depending on your operating system, try to install this. Click here. A download will be it will hit the download, and you will be able to get the .exe file in case of Windows. Click next, 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 and install it as per the, without changing anything there. The moment you install that, and also it will ask you to enter the root password and a username and password. You can create username and password, and once you install that, right, what you will be getting is this kind of a control panel. So what is this control panel? This control panel will be there where you will have Apache, MySQL, FileZilla if you have installed it, otherwise Mercury and Tomcat. These are the modules that are installed when you install the SHAMP server. Okay. So the moment you install this, what I want you to do is open the control panel and start the Apache server and MySQL server. Just start them. Okay, the actions will be there. The moment you start them, it will show which port they are accessing. Just start them, and the moment you start them, it will say it is running. Okay, so the Apache server is running as well as MySQL is running. And what you need to do next is open the browser and just hit localhost. Okay, so what you need to do is http colon front slash localhost. All right. The moment you hit the localhost, you will end up with this dashboard. All right. You just need to enter this URL. That's it. What it is, if you see here, you just need to enter http colon front slash localhost. That's all. Automatically, it will open the dashboard. The moment you open the dashboard, go to php my admin. Okay, click here php my admin, and once you click the php my admin, you will end up with this table, with this screen. So what it contains now, currently there are many databases that I have created, but usually it will contain only information schema and MySQL schema, performance schema. Only this four will be there for you, and rest all is that user defined. We have created this. What you can go ahead and do is create a database. Like for example, if I want to create a new database, you can go ahead and create a database using clicking on the left side, or you go to this SQL. Okay, so you can go to this SQL and go ahead and say create database and the database name. You can execute the commands right in this panel. What you are seeing, this is your SQL query, where in this panel you are going to enter the SQL queries, and you hit go, then that command will be executed. Like for example, there is already a student database created here. So what this student database contains, this database contains two tables. One is student details, another is student subjects. Okay, these are the two databases that are created inside the student table. A student database, these are the two tables. And these two tables, if I go ahead, if I click the student details table, then this student details table contains three columns: student ID, student name, and student section. Okay, there are three columns in this table, and they are student ID, student name, and student section. And if you you can go ahead and write the queries right here. Like for example, if I want to say select star from the table, and what it says, select star from table name. This is the table name, student underscore details. And if I go ahead and click go, then this query will be executed, and it is showing four rows are executed, four total rows, and query took around 0.009 seconds to execute. And this is the result of that query that we have executed. Okay, this is one way of learning the SQL using MariaDB. Okay, this is one way. You can go ahead and do that for yourself. This is one way. Now I'm giving just you a couple of options for you guys, so that you can feel comfortable in working in different environments. All right, here you don't need anything to be installed except the XAMPP distribution, which is Apache distribution. That's it. You can go ahead and open that browser will provide you the GUI, which is a graphical user interface. On the left side you will get all the tables. These are all the databases that are there, and inside the databases you can go ahead and create the tables and execute the queries inside this query tab. Okay, SQL tab, and you can go ahead and execute them. All right, that is one. Right, now let's close this, and let me go to the topic of using Microsoft SQL Server. This is what we are going to use during our learning process now. All right, so now what is this? Go to the Microsoft SQL Server downloads. Okay, or you can just say SQL Server download. Just hit SQL Server download. You will on the Google search, you will come up with this page. Click here SQL Server download, and you will end up on the same page that I am seeing right here. All right, inside this page there are multiple options. SQL Server on Azure. This is a cloud platform. Azure is a cloud platform that is developed by Microsoft. Okay, we don't need this, and we don't need SQL Server at edge. We don't need SQL Server on premises as well. What we need is the Express. This is what SQL Server 2022 Express is, a free edition of SQL Server ideal for development and production for desktop, web, and small server application. So even the developer version, you can go ahead and download it, but it will take a lot of space in your hard disk. So I try to avoid it, because as we are learning, it will be a lighter version to use Express. So just hit the download and it will automatically download the .exe file. Okay, in your Windows operating system, depending on the operating system, it will automatically download the right file for installation. So what you need to do first is installing SQL Server 2022 Express. This is what the first step is. Okay, once you download that, what will happen, right? It will open a dialog box, and you just click on next, 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 and select the basic, and click on the next and install. So the moment you install it, this is what the final screen would look like. What is this? SQL Server 2022 Express Edition installation has completed successfully. All right, this has been completed successfully, and it will show you the instance name where it is stored, and SQL administrator. We have given the Windows login authentication, so it will automatically take my Windows ID, and then it will install the version, latest version of SQL Server 2022 on your system. Okay, once you install the SQL Server Express Edition, the next step what you need is to install the SSMS, which is nothing but SQL Server Management Studio. It is kind of a again, what it is, you will come to this here. What you need to do is, the moment you install the Express, just I'll zoom it a little bit so that you are able to see. Once you install the Express, right, the next, go to the bottom here, you will have a tools section. Okay, so the tools section, SQL Server Tools and Connectors. In this, what you need to download is download SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, so the moment I click it here, it will open a window. Now what you see here is download SQL Server Management Studio, which is nothing but SSMS, we call it as. And what is this SSMS? SSMS is nothing but it is an integrated environment for managing SQL infrastructure for SQL Server. So what it provides you basically is, it will help you to deploy, monitor, and upgrade the database. Okay, it is kind of a user interface that is given to you, a tool or a user interface for database users or database admins or database sub admins who can use that tool, which is nothing but a management studio, to help you to configure, monitor, and administer the instances of SQL Server and databases. This is the purpose of it. All right, so what you need to do is just go ahead, and whenever you get a .sql file, click on it. The moment you click it, it will ask you the location where you want to install the SSMS and give the path to it. Okay, and then hit install. That is what you need to do, nothing else. Just select the path location. If there is a default that is selected, you are fine with it, then go for it. Now currently I'm installing 19.0.2. This is the edition version that is currently available, and we are installing this, and click install. And once it is installed, it will come up with this final dialog box, which will show you that the setup has been completed and all the specific components have been installed successfully. That is what it will show. Then what will happen is SSMS you need to open. What is this SSMS? We'll open that. Now it is getting opened, which is Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. The current version that we are using is 19.0.2. All right. So now let that get opened. So for our learning purpose, right, we are definitely going to use the same SQL Server Management Studio, because we are going to use the Microsoft SQL Server only and nothing else. so that the learning becomes easy for us and we all are on the same page. All right. So now what will happen is, guys, the moment you open the Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio, this connect to server window appears. And what it will ask the server name, server type, just say database engine. Okay. So that is the default, and server name is also selected default because you have given the Microsoft Windows login. This is the express that path is automatically set. The authentication that I have given by default, it will take Windows authentication because that is the login ID and password. Because I have the admin privilege when I'm logging to this computer, which I'm using this laptop, it has got a Windows authentication. Just click connect. That's all. So the moment you click connect, right, then you will have this window on your left side, this panel. What is this? This is nothing but your Object Explorer. Object Explorer contains a lot of things. It contains the databases. This is of importance to us. Okay, always remember, this is the section where all our databases that we create will be there, and rest all is system generated. By default, it will appear in your screen. What you need to do is next click on new query. Either you can use control N or you use new query, and what it will open next, if you observe, yeah, this is a query panel. Wherever you have this, this is where you are going to execute your queries. Like for example, let's say select star from, you can give the table name. Okay, table name you can give, and then you can go ahead and execute this query. All right, this is your query writing, wherever this is the window where you are going to write your queries. All right, so now, and always remember, you need to select the master. That is where you are going to execute the entire queries. Click on execute or F5. Either you can press function key F5, or you can just click on this execute. Either of them is fine to execute your query. All right. Now let's see what else we can do it right now. So let me remove this. Here is the database, right? If you can observe the database, you can go ahead and right click and say new database. You can create the database right here by using right click and say new database. But for our purpose, because we are learning the query, I want to go ahead and use the query language, which is a SQL. Let's say I want to create a database. The very first I need to create is a database. So for that, what I'm going to use is a create command. CREAT, create, then write database, and then enter the database name. Let's say I want to create a database called education. Okay? Simple. So what it will do, create database with the database name as education. I can go ahead and execute this query. So what it says, command completed successfully, which means we have executed this particular command successfully. Now, but what's this table is not showing up. For that, what you need to do is refresh it once, F5. Just refresh it once, then you will be able to see a table called education that is being created. All right. Still, sorry, this is the database that you have created, not the table. So inside this database, we are going to create tables here. But for now, just understand, currently we have just executed our very first query